Welcome to episode 3 of Boom Bap on the Border, an El Paso hip-hop story. On this episode, my friends answer the question, what were some hip-hop related things to do back in the 80s and 90s? Enjoy.
Early ages of that. The b-boy scene was actually like just starting to bubble, you know, and then, you know, months or weeks later, I believe that's when you started having jams.
Yeah.
There were like
shortly after that's when I had mine. Yeah.
My boys did the well, again going back to cause B-boy Steve and Danny Danny Martinez, they moved out to Vegas out there because Art's son was out there. So the three of them were connecting and they met a lot of people. So they ended up bringing the Breaking Boundaries,
which is
legendary
documentary in its own.
Yeah,
just for El Paso.
Yeah, and that was the big one. That was the big one that kind of like shifted a lot of things, you know. And it was planned for many months, and like the level of, you know, what they brought to the city was interesting. But it all spawned from.
Okay, so there was a bit of a hip-hop scene here in El Paso. So the big scene was over across into Juarez, J-Town. So there was a club over there called the Old West. And DJ Marc X was spinning there. So, I mean, that was the hip-hop joint. And it was funny because, you know, I'm coming down from San Diego after graduating high school. And you had all these kids from Juarez that were rocking, you know, bomber jackets, you know, graffitied out, you know, their denim jackets, whatnot. And, you know, they'd be b-boying out there in the streets, and they would really kind of, you know, rush that club, the Old West. And it kind of was like the Old West. There was always fights going on, a lot of military people, a lot of the locals from El Paso, and then a lot of the hip hop heads from there in Juarez. But these Juarez kids, man, I would see them with name buckles, name plates, you know, bombed denim jackets, and, you know, they were big into it. So again, Marc X was spinning there at the time. That was like the only place that you could really go to hear hip hop.
Man, I'm jealous of. I keep hearing about this Old West.
Hey, it was crazy. They would serve you, again, you remember Juarez, drink and drown, but they would serve you a pitcher of a mixed drink. So you went in there, you wanted a blue Hawaiian, man, they'd get you a pitcher. So I mean, we would just. It was like heaven. I mean, you drink what you want. You had hip hop blasting. You had that whole vibe. I mean, it was, but then again, it was kind of like the Old West because a lot of fights going on there. So
Wild West. Yeah, because Mark talked about it, as well as Pooh, I believe. It sounds like fun.
Much fun.
Yeah, I ended up getting polished enough that you know, I could start playing. I was getting real good at the parties and stuff too. But somebody was like, "Hey, there's a club down there in Juarez that the DJ be playing hip hop sometimes."
Damn.
And I was like, "Really?" So they took me down there to the Old West, and I met the DJ. His name is Joe. His DJ name was Joe Fresh. And he's actually, like, he's still DJing over there in Juarez.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
You're doing, how long did you do the Juarez thing?
Shit. I was doing it for like 4 or 5 years. Because, like,
that's a long time.
We were going back and forth over there, and then everything started changing, like, when it started getting, like, political and stuff over there.
Okay, started getting a little crazy.
Yeah, they would tell us, you can't come over here when it's like that. People get hurt, and all that. But it was already getting crazy because
Yes, I do remember Brotha Lee's was a dope-ass hip-hop shop. I remember that place across the street from Hank's. And then we had All That Music, which had like a lot of cool underground CDs that they sold. And I do remember those two spots. And I mean, it was cool to have them in town and stuff. I remember when I would...
I mean, yes, but the one that stands out the most that I would even say that you guys from El Paso kind of took and catapulted it to a level that y'all did was, I would say, this kid named Brotha Lee. He was this kid. You know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I've been there.
I would say he was, besides Match, Match and Ed at the record store, you know, One World Style. That was in, like hip hop, house. You weren't a DJ if you didn't shop there, but Brotha Lee was on a different level.
The next generation. A lot more hip.
It was hip hop, but it had a lot to do with turntablism. This is where we were getting our DJ battles, our DMC battle tapes from, kung fu movies.
Yeah,
like like I said, Match and Ed were influential to a lot of our careers.
Yeah, I mean,
there's Brotha Lee. I just had to put him. I'm putting him first. Well, because I'm a kung fu fanatic. I watch
Gusto,
so many.
Right? Is that the guy's name?
Gusto. Yeah. Yes.
I didn't know him, but
Mark would go there to practice. That's where Mark would go to practice his scratching. I would go watch. And then he had all the kung fu movies, the anime, and he was on the east side, right there on Lee Torino, right across from Hank.
Thanks.
And that was the spot. He used to have like little block parties right there. You know what I mean? And it would be either break dances or DJs or rappers that came through trying to pump this shit.
Yeah.
It's no different than what you guys do. So it's like, so that was the 90s. You couldn't talk about them without talking about Gusto. You couldn't.
Yeah.
And you couldn't talk about DJing or the culture of DJing without talking about Match and Ed.
Yeah.
Period.
I started to. What happened? We were all hanging out. We used to hang out at Brotha Lee's on Lee Torino.
Brotha Lee's, I remember that. Absolutely.
Shout out to Gusto. Brotha Lee's was like the spot. Like Gusto had a 06. He had a 06 mixer when it first came out.
All right.
He had the turntables, and when the Invisible Scratch Pickles put out those VHS cassette tapes of all the little stuff that Cubert and them were doing.
Yep.
You know, we'd be watching those videos and on the turntables and stuff. Which record shop?
Didn't you say your people had a record shop, or was it just a garage?
No, Charles Chavez was the one that had the record. He had a record shop.
Yeah, what was that called?
It was called New York Records.
Okay.
Believe it or not.
New York Records. Okay, so we had a record shop. Throughout the years, besides Brotha Lee's, we got New York Records. We had One World Style.
Yeah, One World Style at the time was downtown.
Yeah, downtown Match, right?
Yeah, Match was downtown, Match and Eddie. And
Match 1, right?
Yeah.
I ain't know him personally, but I would see him at the store. I still got some bootleg VHS stuff there.
Yeah, and the reason why I even knew about the store is I had another friend who's not with us no more. His name is DJ S.A. He lived out there in Chaparral. He was really, really a dope DJ.
That sounds familiar.
He actually opened me up to like everything else. Like Like every time I went to his house, this motherfucker he would have Iron Maiden on the turntable and be like,
Shit.
"Yo, man, check this out," and then he would do something crazy.
Nice.
And so, he was constantly down there with Match and Eddie, getting records and stuff like that. I had went to the store a couple of times when they was downtown, but once they got on Pershing,
Yeah.
that's when I was going in there
More often.
Yeah, because I was
I
able.
went once or twice downtown and once or twice to. I didn't go often, but that was one of the few places that had some real hip hop shit.
Yeah.
Then it went into it transitioned. What transitioned this whole thing for us was Brother Lee's.
Yeah.
The story comes into Brother Lee's where Gusto had opened up. He was good friends with Rick. Rick worked there for him for a little while, and we started selling our mixtapes there. And then this is kind of fast forward to where I got more
Tell
exposure.
people where Brother Lee's is.
So
Yeah, Brother Lee's.
So Brother Lee's, Brother Lee's was kind of like a little, I guess you could say a little hip hop shop. Gusto was into, I mean, he wasn't like a hardcore hip hop head, but he had passion and he had some money to
There
do
was
it.
hip hop, but it was just like a cool shop.
A cool shop,
It was
yeah, like
dope shop,
a cultural shop.
Culture, counterculture.
Counterculture, yeah.
Counterculture, underground.
It wasn't
shop.
pure hip hop, but I mean, he
It was
had
just
elements of it.
underground,
And
counterculture,
he had
cool
turntables set up, and Robot's brother Nick would DJ there
Shouts to
and
Nick.
just do little things there. But I remember Gusto would sell graffiti supplies there too. And then we came in because we started selling the mixtapes there.
Yeah.
So we had a little section. Even during this time, we got to shout out Match and One World Style, Match and Eddie. But I don't know if they ever did any jams or anything like that. I mean,
Not that I know, but I didn't know anything. I didn't know too much back then. I was still trying to get into the scene, but yeah.
Yeah, and so I mean, they were there before Brother Lee's, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
But they were kind of more like about the music, like the vinyl and the
DJ
tapes and DJ stuff. Yeah, so it wasn't so like, it was kind of more like a, just kind of a straightforward, shop like that, record shop basically,
My sister used to run up on York. York was at the All Graders Club.
Give a quick, tiny. I'm gonna get in here. Tell the people who York is.
York has been DJing before I was, like, when I was in Underoos and shit.
Okay, so we'll leave it with that. Go back just to give people a little tease.
Okay.
I still have no idea what order I'm gonna drop us up, but I'm gonna get York in here as well.
Yeah, you got to.
So continue.
So, my sister and them, they were going to the All Graders and stuff on the nights where I would be down in Juarez. And so they would be like, you need to get my brother in here, let him play. And he's like, he's a backyard DJ. He ain't ready for this shit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
He would clown on me too, man.
Playing at Old West, bro. Risking my life.
He's like, they don't know what's going on. They'll dance to anything.
Then later on, I found out about the All Graders Club on Fort Bliss. So All Graders Club was there on base. And again, you would have a lot more soldiers there. I guess they felt a little safer because they weren't going to Juarez and, getting in scraps or anything. And the DJs there were DJ York. I don't know if you remember him. And then again, Marc X. So they were kind of holding it down, a lot of hip hop, a lot of New Jack Swing, a lot of R&B. But those were the only two places you could really go, dance, listen to some hip hop. It was there in Juarez at the Old West and then at the All Graders Club.
All right. And the All Graders, how do you spell that?
All ALL and then Graders. And it was the All Graders Club. I don't know if that was the official name.
GRADERS?
Yep. All Graders. I guess it was like, it wasn't an officers club. It was just, all grades, all ranks.
Oh, is that what it means?
Yeah, that's what I figured. But it was, yeah, but it was there on base. And again, man, there was always fights going on there. So you would have your, you would have your.
Not in Mexico. Go to
True.
a Mexican jail.
Well, you're on base, but yeah, at least you weren't going to, and I remember there at the Old West, a couple times there were some major fights there in the street where the Mexican paddy wagons would just come up there and start grabbing anybody that looked American. So, yeah.
Well, I guess my first exposure, and it's kind of like a commercialized thing, because I know like we can get into like a story of when you threw events and some of the other homies threw real true like cultural hip hop b-boy events and stuff like that. Prior to that, the only thing that I was exposed to was like Teen Expo.
Okay.
You know what I mean?
I remember that.
And
I never went though.
And there was even before the Teen Expo. So Teen Expo, if for those that don't know, it would happen every year, and it was just kind of like a thing at the convention center, or they had it different places. But it was
Describe
always
it a little more.
So at the time, people were into, I guess, dance crews. You know what I'm saying? So like you'd have your little neighborhood block, and it was like 3 or 4 homies, and you'd put together routines because back then, obviously, like New Edition and all these guys were doing like little dance routines, and it was kind of like the hip hop. What is it called? The New Jack Swing. New Jack Swing era was right there. So everybody was dance routines and wearing, back then. And remember back then in the mall, it was the oak tree and shit, what was the other one? You'd go get the baggy hammer pants. You know what I mean?
Coda.
Yeah, Coda like and all that shit. And so this was the time for me when everybody was, wearing creepers, doing the MC Hammer dances, doing the New Jack Swing stuff. So everybody was dancing. And even though it wasn't b-boying, but it was dancing, and it was kind of like to hip-hop
related dance,
grooving,
but not b-boy.
Yeah,
because now we're going into the late 80s.
Yeah,
that's when you move back.
This is when, to me, that was my first like exposure of what kind of later evolved into a more pure. And then you had obviously like as an expo or a convention, you had vendors and people there just doing stuff, but the main attraction was the dancing element of it, and it was just a competition. And then again for us kids, just hey, this is like all the kids from around the city are going to be here. So you got east, west, north, south, lower valley. You know what I mean? Like,
do you remember how many you went to?
I probably went to like about 4 or 5, man.
Really?
Yeah. So, there was a lot of hip hop shit to do that was underground. And believe it or not, it was in my neighborhood. Well, at the end of my neighborhood. So there was this place. I keep asking everybody what it was called. It was like Castle Park. I think it was Castle Park. All the breakdancers and the hip hop heads, and there was a few. And for those that listen, that's from that era. It was on Yarborough and I-10, on the other side of Yarborough, and it was just like this whole like fake ass amusement park shit that we would hang out. Metallica even fucking performed there before they became Metallica. Yeah. And that's where all the battles were happening, MC battles, B-boy battles. And then down the street, there was another Castle Park was the one that was down the street. I can't remember the one that was on Yarborough and I-10, but Castle Park was another one that was on some B-boy shit. And Castle Park was on Lomaland and I-10 on the right-hand side going east, and it looked like a fucking castle. And it was a arcade, but it was huge. It had arcade, mini golf course.
I went there when I was little. Yeah. There was hip hop shit there.
Yeah, there was actual shit that was made for that. And so was that other spot on Yarborough. And then we made not me, but people made their own shit. And it would be, we gotta go. You should see the flyers. They look like New York flyers. They look like it was somebody that drew each fucking flyer and passed them. Yeah, and there was always some DJ with a crazy ass body, which is actually on my arm. Had the crazy long ass body DJing, and it would be like naming 50,000 DJs on there. And it'd be like, even I have a flyer. I don't have it with me. It's in El Paso.